Welcome to the Biology of Trauma book synopsis of Dr. Aimie Apigian's new book that just came out in late September, September 23rd. It is now a USA Today top bestseller, top 10 books in the United States right now. And I'm so excited to share a couple of her topics or revelations from her groundbreaking book. When you hear all these amazing sentiments, it's true. It is such an amazing book. So as people start to file in here, I just wanted to say thank you for showing up and for registering. Many of you decided to watch the recording, and that's totally okay. This topic, is a sensitive topic. And so I appreciate that you are doing what you can for your nervous system and watching it when you are regulated and prepared to take in this new information. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And here we are. So I have a couple disclaimers here. The information that's shared is for educational purposes today, and please consult a licensed provider before acting on any of this content. Some of the products that I share at the end of the presentation are formulated according to traditional homeopathic principles and are not intended to treat disease. And the quality and quantity of my health and wellness coaching services are not dependent on any product or service. So this is a quote I'm going to share. This is by Dr. Partha Nandi, who also has a New York Times bestselling book, Heal Your Gut, Save Your Brain. And he shares in an endorsement, I am deeply moved by the honesty, hope, and healing that permeate every page of this important book. As a practicing physician, I see countless patients carrying emotional pain in physical ways. So if you've ever felt stuck, shut down, or unseen due to unresolved trauma, Dr. Apigian's work offers a lifeline. It is essential reading of our time. So if you're like, oh, she's just catering to other functional doctors, she has endorsements by Dr. Peter Levine, Stephen Porges, and forwarded Gabor Mate. Dr. Gabor Mate has wrote the forward. So we're in good hands. All right, so like I mentioned, we're entering into some sensitive territory. So I just invite you to just be gentle with yourself and with ourselves on the call. So I'm going to share a quick somatic exercise just to get us into this parasympathetic state. So if you want to go ahead wherever you're seated, if you're driving, please, that's okay. Just go ahead and mute or listen. But both feet on the floor, back straight, chin down, and if it feels comfortable to close your eyes, please do so. And I'm just going to ask that you notice your body and just notice your breath for just a second and just say hello. This may be the first time that you're connecting with your body today. And I'm going to invite you to take a couple breaths with me. They go like this. It goes 2 breaths in and 1 long breath out. I'll do that again. And just 2 more times on your own. When you're done, you can keep your eyes closed and just kind of roll out your wrists and scrunch your toes in. These are all ways to get you into that rest and to digest, or what Dr. A calls the calm and awake state. And this is really good to do throughout the day, but particularly if you're about to learn something new, or you have, you're going to present, or you're having an important conversation. So can we start with some good news? There's hope. So if you're listening to this with a gut-brain autoimmune disease that you may have been diagnosed with for decades, you are in the right class. And if conventional healthcare hasn't helped and you tried every way to manage your stress and things that used to work aren't working for you anymore, please stay and listen. And if your chronic gut brain or autoimmune symptoms have worsened despite the number of practitioners, you may be missing something, and it could be the biology of trauma. And if you're totally skeptical and dismissing your experiences as just stress or being too sensitive, and maybe you need to, be like David Goggins and just push, uh, we're going to talk about that today. And Dr. Aimie talks about that in her book. So tell me in the chat who has a copy already of Dr. Aimie's book. Please let me know. And so the beauty is by the end of these 30 minutes, I'm going to finish the synopsis. And then for those of you that want to stick around with me, I'll be sharing a special gift for those of you live and how to work with me. So no matter what you've been told, the body is designed to thrive when given a safe space, the right tools, and the right guides. So someone's got the book. Awesome. All right. So finally, you get to say goodbye to gut issues, the bloating, the brain fog, the fatigue, the food sensitivities, the skin conditions, the low metabolism, smooth out some hormonal imbalances and mood issues, get some sleep, and reverse metabolic syndrome, reverse these autoimmune symptoms, chronic pain, digestive disorders, IBS, long haul syndrome, chronic fatigue, because they all share the same common roots in trauma biology. So everything below the surface here is, the nervous system dysregulation, the nutrient deficiencies, the chemicals, the environmental toxins, the chronic infections, right? These are all, and our limiting beliefs and stored emotions that are driving these symptoms of chronic disease. So in this webinar, I'm going to point out the most important points that I got from the book, and most importantly, how to dig deep into the physical reasons that are blocking your natural expression of health. So it's not just about treating illness anymore, it's about prevention, early detection, action, and personalized care. So if it doesn't matter if you've tried a bunch of things to manage your stress, the biohacking, the therapy, the nature walks, you're going to get the latest in trauma treatment and how and why the body holds onto fear, pain, and overwhelm and what to do about it. Hooray. So you can go from dreaming about how good it can feel to actually living in having the energy and the peace to live out your purpose. That is my mission for everyone. So I want to ask you, do you have any of these, do you resonate with any of these statements? This is my quick survey. Are you feeling disconnected? Are you using food or alcohol to numb and check out? Like I know with one of my current clients, she just finds herself back with the red wine at night and watching The Walking Dead. What about struggling with moving forward in life and finding yourself playing small? What about rationing your energy resources? I'm going to talk about this a little later, but if that resonates, where you cancel the outings because you know you won't have the energy later. What about having, like, you don't really recognize your reactions anymore? You're just either too quick to react, or you're not reacting enough. Um, are you finding it hard to trust yourself and or your reactions? And are you diagnosed with a chronic disease? So go ahead and put a Y in the chat if any of these resonate, and an N if they don't. That's our quick survey for today. So we've heard from clients with digestive issues, autoimmune, GERD, IBS, IBD, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, diverticulitis, mold infections, allergy, rheumatoid arthritis, joint issues, hormonal imbalances, autoimmune, Hashimoto's, chronic fatigue, mental health issues, anxiety, depression, bipolar, just to name a few. And this is a friendly reminder that the chronic issues, even if it's just low energy or brain fog or constipation or getting sick every season, it's not okay. And the idea is that we need, everyone, as far as I'm concerned, and Dr. A is concerned, I'm sure, is we need the mental health treatment and the physical health treatment to remove the stored overwhelm in your body and return it to a sense of safety. So, did you know that all the symptoms I listed have the same root cause, and that's the nervous system? So, I'm Taylor, and I help natural health seekers to uncover the blocks of what's causing dysfunction in the body without drugs. I'm a chronic people pleaser, recovering, and also an achiever is one of my saboteurs. And these are patterns of trauma. And so I also was a counselor, got my master's in counseling in 2009, have worked with migrant education, low income first generation students with substance use and abuse, and an out of school youth program, which was very difficult and where I got a lot of my trauma training. So I watched a student disassociate in my office. There was pathological lying, there was substance use every day in this school. Um, it was a out of school youth school within a community college in California. Trafficking, neglect. We had the 2017 Santa Rosa fires during that time, and one of our students, family members actually died. Many lost their homes. So this is where I actually got trained by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, who, for those of you who don't know, she was our first Surgeon General of California. And she launched a statewide initiative to screen children for adverse childhood experiences. And so I learned about the social determinants of health. I learned more of these adverse childhood experiences and why, and the original study back in San Diego from 1992, I think it started, and I think it ended back in 99, Dr. Fellini. Um, and I also read Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book, actually listened to it up and down the coast, West Coast. And so I knew I no longer wanted to work in crises. And I learned from Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's work that talk therapy is not the best treatment for trauma. And so as I started to learn these things, it started to give me permission to work in the foundations of health because I saw that so many students were missing the foundations of their nutrition, their sleep, the reducing of toxic substances, healthy relationships, exercise. And so I went back to school for my certification in health and wellness coaching and functional nutritional counseling. And I'm so thankful for the work and particularly Dr. Amy's work that I'm about to share. So here's the agenda. We're going to do the Reframe, which was the most shocking for me. It was early in the book and it was so delicious. The three legs of treating trauma, and then the five behavioral patterns that drive nervous system dysregulation and shutdown, so you can see that in yourself or someone you know or love. So, after a decade of clinical research, Dr. Aimie wrote the book, The Biology of Trauma, to show how the body absorbs experiences and overwhelm. And what are the ways to identify commonly overlooked trauma symptoms like fatigue and fogginess and anxiety or worry? And how to recognize emotional pain stored in the body that affects cellularly our health, even for people with functionally successful lives, and how to prevent trauma-induced changes in our biology that suppress this cycle of recovery, and to work with the nervous system in a way that doesn't re-traumatize. Hooray. So I've been working at a water shop in Sauna Beach for the last 7 years. I now work remotely, and it's in a hybrid model, so remote or in person. And our members are very savvy and up to date on longevity and biohacking. So a lot of our members will take agramancia or go through brain treatments or methane blue or nitric oxide or peptides or exosomes, go down to Tijuana for treatment, plant-based stem cells, probiotics, cold plunge memberships, NAD plus injections, BHRT, PRP, neurofeedback. So if anything of these things are ringing true, keep doing them if they're working, but know that you may be missing something. And if you're involved in the conventional care model, example, meeting with your gastroenterologist or your favorite therapist, they may not be getting to the root because they ignore how the body is storing emotional pain, which leads to true biological barriers to change. So remember, it's not just managing symptoms anymore, but getting to the root of your symptoms and feeling vibrant health for a lifetime. This is like what we're going to be doing with health moving forward. So my client, health and wellness coaching client, Tommy, sought out health coaching due to his anxiety to flying. It was stopping him from signing some very lucrative photography and videography contracts around the globe. And he was seeing a talk therapist and had developed some skills around tapping that he found that were helping him. So together we worked on his morning routine and chose some positive behaviors around sleep and exercise. He chose those behaviors. So he would wake up and go hit balls at the range, golf balls, and watch the sunrise. And he spoke to his brother about joining his tennis club for lessons. So at the time, I didn't have Dr. Apigian brain. I would So for instance, was his insomnia and numbing out with weed in the evenings cutting into his dating life and making connections? Could living off coffee and eating Chick-fil-A and other fast food due to budget concerns be fueling his anxiety and symptoms of depression? There's therapy, there's tapping, and psychology. So somewhere in his 31 years life, he line of overwhelm, maybe multiple times, and he needed to get his biology, his cells into a sense of safety. So you'll find out, um, what is this critical line of overwhelm? And when you cross it, these symptoms snowball. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. It's both prevention and treatment. So if you're seeing improvement in your health, whether that's through conventional medications, treatment providers, or biohacking, don't stop. But for anyone serious about sustainable personal transformation, this work provides the missing piece between intention and lasting change. I always use this analogy. So let's go back 170 years ago and think about just a morning. You wake up, you're maybe using activated charcoal or twigs to clean your teeth. Maybe you make a fire, maybe you make your bed out of cotton, maybe you're wearing cotton pajamas, or you're eating organic free-range eggs from your backyard, bacon from your neighbor's pig, fresh milk, grass-fed cows, biscuits made without flour, made with glyphosate or made with glyphosate in it and other pesticides, no DDT on crops, no BPA in water bottles, no antibiotics in meats. So our immune system was designed to kill bugs, wrong bacteria, molds, viruses, fungi, not all the rest of the chemical onslaught that we have daily. And now our modern living exposes us to a constant stream of chemicals, plastics, environmental toxins, and they accumulate and burden our gut, clog our detox pathways, disrupt our neurotransmitters, leaving people inflamed, reactive, and exhausted. So what about the mental and emotional demands? Just think. I mean, the toddler that just hit his head on the coffee table, the depressed young adult in your house that hasn't found their wings, persistently struggling with finding work that keeps piling up, or you're doing 2 to 3 jobs. Sorry, one second. Okay. So our nervous system and biology and human genetics have not changed since 170 years ago. So now the future, the unknown is lightning speed. Even just watching a reel on Dave Asprey's Instagram about digital twins in clinical research. So the 3 things that a trauma response needs to reset is time, energy, and safety. And all 3 are missing in our lives with our modern world. The cultural push or expectation is to just push through, get it done yesterday, get over it. And it's so what people are doing is doing the best they can with supporting their bodies with supplements and protein shakes and maybe even the energy work or therapy. And this might be exactly what is not helping you successfully move through a reset. So here's an example of a client who, if you are in San Diego, I do offer neural checks as part of my programs, and it's heart rate variability. And this is actually testing brain stress and nervous system stress. And so just up here, you can see that this client she was stuck and wasn't able to move from sympathetic, which is the gas pedal, into parasympathetic, which is the rest, digest, or calm and awake state, according to Dr. A. So after about 3 months of nervous system treatment and treating the biology, she was able to have a gear that was not as stuck. She was able to shift into sympathetic and parasympathetic with more ease. And that's the beauty of this work. So let's get into really this first bit of Dr. Aimie's work, which is crossing the critical line of overwhelm. This first part of the book blew my mind. So let's look at it. Here's stress, here's your stress, and here's your capacity for stress. When your stress is less than your capacity, you're in the safety zone. Stress can energize us. And this is a really supportive space to be in, right? When stress and capacity are equal, we're starting to enter into the danger zone. So we might need to bust out some tools and prevent this stress load or increase our capacity. We have to maybe go back to the foundations or slow down, remind ourselves not to push through and listen to our body signals. When our stress becomes greater than our capacity, this is the trauma zone. And it can be an overwhelm that breaks us. So stress energizes and trauma and overwhelm depletes us. Each one of us have a different line, a critical line of overwhelm. It's our life experiences. It's how, what was our birth story? How is our attachment? What are our limiting beliefs? Or what's the inner critic like? What's our biology? What are our genetics? So each one of us has a different line of overwhelm, and our biology goes on hold. Everything shuts down when we get into this trauma zone. For those of you that are trained, it's the cell danger response or getting into the dorsal vagal response, if you know polyvagal theory. So what I love about Dr. Apigian, I keep wanting to, I'm going to work on that, Apigian, the trauma reframe, this blew my mind. She's like, we can call it trauma or we can just call it overwhelm. If you don't like the word trauma, she's like, use the word overwhelm, because the reality is that's what's happening biologically in our bodies. So she says that even we can look at adverse childhood experiences, but we can also look at our experiences as adults. Have we lived through too much too quickly? Or have we gone too little for too long? So she's like, call it burnout, call it chronic stress, call it toxic stress. She's like, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to ask you to ponder this for a minute as she defines the difference between stress and trauma. Too much too quickly, too little for too long. So she, in her book, she's asking us to no longer just limit our view to trauma as this big, bad event, war, poverty, disease, refugees. It's accidents, right? Many of us are carrying more overwhelm, pain, and fear than we've recognized. And we're often just dismissing these experiences as too just stress or being too sensitive. So we're stepping away from that what happened to you and getting that ACE score questionnaire and the big T trauma scoring. And we're doing it a little bit, she's doing it a little bit differently. So let me know in the chat, can you remember having something happen in life as an adult or as a child where something happened too much, too quickly, or too little for too long? Just go ahead and put a Y for yes or an N for no in the chat. Okay, so that we just finished Dr. Amy's Biology of Trauma Reframe, and I'm going to move through pretty quickly for these next two agenda items because I'm already noticing the time. I cannot believe it goes by so fast. So the three things that a trauma response needs for a reset is time, energy, and safety. And like I mentioned, most of these things are missing in our modern world. So it's just a reminder to notice that cultural expectation of having to push through, get it done yesterday, get over it. And so I want to share her example of this loop that we stay in and doesn't allow us to get into the safety time and energy to treat trauma, store trauma. So this is what this stress trauma loop looks like. It's that sympathetic shutdown, and it's where the trauma burden is just heavy or too heavy because of the original trauma, but because you're stuck in this loop. So um, suddenly you've been able to cope, and then suddenly your bucket kind of overflows and nothing that used to work is working anymore. So the sympathetic, which I spoke about earlier, is that pedal, and that what's happening is you're also pressing on this freeze and shutdown state, and that's the trauma state. So the common alive state is the parasympathetic. The activation state is the sympathetic, like get up and go. And then this trauma state is when you're pressing on the activation state, that sympathetic response, and you're also going into freeze and shut down, which is your brake pedal. And it's just basically burning out the transmission. So how can we tell if we've got our foot on the brake and on the gas at the same time, if we don't have a sophisticated HRV tests, or if they come out normal? So this is in the agenda. These are the 5 patterns that you can see in yourself or loved ones. So the first one is disconnection. So do you feel disconnected or cut off from your body signals like hunger or thirst? Are you like my current client who finds themselves very aware of them numbing out with alcohol at night and watching The Walking Dead? Do you find yourself cutting yourself off from social situations or family? For instance, I personally, during COVID, had cut off long-term friends, a few of them, one of 20 years, one of 12 years, one of 3 years. And many of you, if you're listening, will say, oh, that's so bad. But it was my way to get back to a sense of safety. I had to finally drop the people-pleasing patterns that kept showing up in my life and holding me back and helping me stay small. And so I had to be able to meet my authentic self, and for me to engage with others in that same way. So it's really important for us to differentiate this disconnection. Are we doing it as a reaction, or are we doing it consciously? So are we just reacting with numbing, or are we choosing, right? So the problem when we start to disconnect is that it also disconnects us from everything good and bad as far as when it comes to emotions. So when we can't selectively numb, as they say. What about forward movement? Maybe you can recognize this in yourself or someone that you know or love. Your movement could be impeded. It's our flow. So it could show up as sabotaging ourselves or resisting change. We see this, Dr. Aimie talks about perfectionism in her clients, people pleasing, limiting beliefs, like if I'm not nice, which is the people pleasing, I'm not worthy. You could be hiding or burying resentment or anger. And this refrain, or it's essentially your brain is telling you you're not enough just to be yourself. So if you're always putting others first, thinking about your chronic disease state, the symptoms aren't that bad. You just keep taking medications and managing symptoms. This is blocking your forward movement. And this may be a pattern to notice. That's a trauma pattern, showing you that you may have stored trauma in the body. What about depletion? So this one talks about being exhausted after maybe working out, where you're all of a sudden your workout you used to be fine, and all of a sudden now you do your hot yoga class and you're exhausted. You find yourself rationing your energy, where you're like, oh, I know I have a social engagement on Friday, so I'm not going to go out on Wednesday and Thursday, right? Um, what about limiting your creation, your creativity, your play, your joy? All these things that you used to love to do are now feeling too energetically expensive. I love that phrase. Um, do you can you recognize this? So we're just not letting ourselves do more than we can handle. And that is just so we can manage our capacity because our stress is starting to we're getting into that. Stress is equaling our capacity. All right, just a couple more. So this one, dysregulation. This is interesting, is when your responses to a trigger aren't normal. So she talks about wearing a knapsack. Um, when we can't deal with uh, overwhelming emotions, we tend to shelve them. So maybe you worked with a therapist around this, but sometimes we shelve them, and she's just saying we put them in a knapsack, right? So if someone bumps in to us with a heavy knapsack, then this is the whole imaginary tiger analogy, right? So I think about a client who was getting brain treatment for PTSD, who was at our clinic, and he flew his girlfriend in for a day, and I got to meet her, and then found out that the next day they had a fight, and he put her back on a plane, and home she went. So it's that really too hot, too cold, poking the bear. And so you can have an overreaction or an underreaction. And so this dysregulation makes it hard for others to feel safe around us and equally hard for us to trust ourselves. So how do you know if people are dysregulated? They may be creating or looking for drama or chaos. All you have to do is open up a social media, right? And for my fellow empaths or highly sensitive people, we also pick up on these exaggerated responses of energy and emotion, and we can take this on as well. Okay, finally, the chronic disease state. So if you have a chronic disease and it's showing up as a sign, it's a sign that these four patterns that I just described have built up into dysregulation and are now you're seeing symptoms. So the good news is that we can dump our toxic bucket and remove what's causing dysfunction in the body, stored trauma. So metabolic syndrome, autoimmunity, chronic pain, digestive disorders, IBS, long haul, or chronic fatigue all share common roots in trauma biology. So there it is, folks. That is the synopsis of the biology of trauma. You can go into some posts, social posts from people. There are some critiques around her book. What's missing is not addressing the bigger factors that are at play. For instance, the social determinants of health and how they play into feelings of safety and security. So, okay. So education, employment, housing, food security, transportation, neighborhoods, safety, social support, access to healthcare, policies and laws. These are all kind of the meta influence of how we feel safe and secure in our bodies. So to summarize, took me 40 minutes, my apology. But if you see these patterns in yourself or others, Dr. Aimie is saying that these patterns help you to recognize that your body is still holding on to the trauma, and now we can apply the right treatment. So thank you. I hope that you learned, a somatic exercise. I have a sabotage assessment that's free on my website to learn more about some limiting beliefs that are blocking you in your forward movement. Please buy Dr. Amy's book. It just got released in September, and she has some amazing content on social media and YouTube. And so my hope is that you work on feeling safe and cozy with your preferred treatment provider, and also take my What's Your Gut Type quiz, because I really took a lot of Dr. Amy's reframing around trauma and made sure that it was in one of my gut types. So for those of you that are here and want to hang back, I'm going to show you how you can get support to release your trauma burden and get out of overwhelm. So if you've been cycling in the trauma loop for decades, there's hope. And I'll answer some questions and give out a bonus giveaway. So I'm going to put my gut type quiz in the chat. And again, if you're looking for the saboteur assessment, that's on my tier 1 complimentary session, and I'll send it to you automatically. Okay, there's that. Okay, so I'm going to get into where do you start with this work? Where do you start to get the support to release some of the stored trauma? So access to care is one thing, but knowing how to apply health information is another. So I'm really big on applied theory, which is why I love Dr. Amy's book. So the first thing to consider is lifestyle. I would be remiss to not speak about this, being a board certified health and wellness coach. So if you, she uses the analogy of you got to stop the car from spinning. And how you stop the car from spinning is to get the nervous system support, whether that's the somatic support or whether that's through therapy, which I'm going to describe in a second. But consider, preparing yourself the healthy meal, getting hydration, reaching out for a connection, taking a multivitamin, gentle movement, breathing. These all are small deposits in our capacity account and can move our critical line of overwhelm a little bit further out so we don't cross it. So if you need support with making sure that the car stops spinning, this is my tier 1 health and wellness coaching program. And that's for it's an 8-week program. There's the therapy buffet. So it is out of my scope to act as a therapist. So you can choose your choice. Do you want talk therapy? Are you interested in more somatic support? Massage or meridian or acupuncture work? What about EMDR? What about horse therapy? And I'm going to talk about plant medicine in just a second. So for those of you who prefer to process emotions through somatic practices over talk therapy, or who have not found safety in the conventional, marriage and family therapist or clinical counselor, you're being seen right now. Sharing your story and having a witness and going through cognitive behavioral therapy to change your mental responses to triggers may have not been enough for you. And I encourage you to find a different treatment that you enjoy. This is someone that I'm kinesthetic, so processing verbally is not my preference, and it's okay to not want to process verbally. Particularly if you've had trauma in your life, it tends to re-traumatize, and that's Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's work. So living in San Diego, I get the pleasure of bumping into amazing geneticists like my buddy Nate, from UC San Diego who has been in functional genomics for the field for 25 years. And I got to speak to him about the research going on at UCSD for psilocybin and ketamine. And basically, how he describes it, it's so eloquent, is he sees hot spots in the genes and the functional genes, essentially inflammation. And what happens with um, a psilocybin and ketamine facilitated treatment with a medical provider, um, it essentially resets the brain. So it can be great for people with treatment-resistant depression. Um, but if you have certain mental health conditions like severe PTSD, psychosis where you're hearing voices, or schizophrenia, these all can be worsened by psychedelics. So again, make sure that you take a full psychiatric screening and assessment for history and trauma exposure, and so you can know your readiness and work with a provider. So just like any medication, it needs to be monitored because these are the heavy hammers. But this is what Dr. A talks about is the plant medicine, it resets the body, particularly the brain. And so you can kind of get over it and do it a little bit quicker than what I'm about to present. So this is at the end of her book, but basically you got to stop this car from spinning and you got to get into a sense of safety. You got to find the right support and unblock what's blocking your body. And then so you can expand into this post-traumatic growth and be better than who you were before because you get to have processed and resolved these experiences in the body, which makes you more resilient. Um, and you have the peace and energy to live out your purpose. So you can be like Kim, who um, had a history of trauma and then also mold toxicity, unfortunately, and in her moldy condo in her home in Sauna Beach. And then afterward, just the amount of connection, health that's going on in her immediate family, and in her own romantic life. She's stepping into 2025 with health and happiness. So I'm going to just get into my program real quick. I'm going to skip these because I don't have time. So I'm going to make this easy. So if you are still overwhelmed, write overwhelmed in the chat because I get it. It's totally okay. Um, But if you're wanting to learn a little bit more about my program, just put a Y or a yes, because I'm going to show you the 6 steps to my personalized gut detox program if you do not have a chronic disease. And if you do have a chronic disease symptom, I'm going to show you my Tier 3 program that includes my Tier 1 and Tier 2 programs. So it's a personalized system where not only you learn about your genetic weaknesses, but learn about the ebb and flow in your own body so you can finally take back control. My goal is for all of my clients to be their own best practitioner. So going forward, you don't continue to look for the next specialist, doctor, psychotherapist, naturopath who's magically going to heal you. You're going to have the answers and tools to make the best of the time between treatments and or doctor visits. So I'm just going to take 5 minutes and get to the top of the hour and take some questions at the end. Okay. So this is why other detox cleanses don't work. They don't look at your detoxification genes. They don't support excretion. They don't replenish your energy. They don't use effective binders. They don't break up stones and sluggish bile, and they don't work with the nervous system. So my programs, my Tier 2 and Tier 3 functional nutritional programs, we always look at the size of your bucket, meaning we look at your functional genes and we look and see, Do you have capacity? How big is your bucket? Some people's buckets, are the size of dump trucks. Others are the size of a teacup. So sometimes people's buckets get full, and they get full with these things, right? This is all of this is all contributing to our toxic load, including trauma. And then I go into story. I go into a functional matrix. I go through an entire health history, from birth to present day. That's part of our functional training, is to actually hear you, hear your entire story, and then map it on a matrix so we can prioritize your person and personalize your needs. I also use a UCSD wellness wheel. I teach in this space, and so I use this to help design an aspirational goal, for where you want to take and be when it comes to your health. If you're in San Diego, I'll use my neural check, which is an heart rate variability, brain stress, and nervous system stress assessment. I'll send your genetic report to your door. It's just a quick 2-minute cheek swab lab test that you can send back in, and you get your genetic report. You get food sensitivities. You get interpretation session with me, plus a report with your customized, steps. If you're in my tier 3 program, we test for microbiome, we test for total toxic burden. These are all designed to help us understand how leaky your gut is. And when you have a leaky gut, you have a leaky brain. And so really, I work on my online group program. This is really to support cleaning up your terrain, which is what Dr. Aimie talks about in her book, is that if we're constantly in the stress cell danger response, we can't resolve what's going on cellularly. So we need to increase the energy. We need to go upstream and clear that up. We need to clear up what's going on in our organs and our gut, and that this systems framework. And we're doing it all in community. We have Q&A sessions together as a group, and then I have all my bonus gifts to keep you on track. So symptom tracker, my workbook that's now 60 plus pages, with kind of DIY protocols, and then a supplement discount. So what I'm going to share is just today. I'm going to stop the recording because for those of you live, I want to share the complimentary session and then the free gift. So
her therapist gave her some books to read, and then her therapist moved, and so she's kind of in a limbo on that right now. Right, she's using AI, and I listened to a news brief on NPR this morning about a woman using AI. But what they were saying there is that AI doesn't know when you're tearing up about something.
Yeah. And I think that connection is, I think that might feed that feeling of disconnect, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So sort of, you go from parenting disconnect to technology disconnect, and so it's just all of a sudden you realize you're not grounded anywhere.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you use that word. Feel, swaying in the wind, not grounded. Aimie uses that analogy where it's, the car is spinning. So yeah, let me stop the recording. Let me get your address so I can stick this in the mail. And that it would be such a pleasure to gift it to your daughter.